All You Can Lead is a channel about leadership and self-development topics. Hi everyone, we have Michael back on the show today. So for the folks that don't know Michael yet, Michael was a people ops lead at Waymo and Google for about 10 years.
Collectively,
yeah. 10 years. Wow, so really a veteran from the industry. And Michael is going to talk a little bit about how to become a first-time manager.
So I wanted to share that, when I became a manager, I really appreciated the importance of a lot of these things I learned over time. And one of those big foundational things is how do you create enough psychological safety within your team? And I would say that psych safety is really like air. When you have it, you don't really notice it. But when you don't have it, that's all you think about. And so how I think about being a good manager, there's what we're calling the AIR framework, 3 Airs. The 3 parts are care, second is share, and the third is be fair. And the first part of caring really is the foundation to building that trust with your team. And so, we talk about right now, there's the great resignation. A lot of people are leaving. McKinsey actually in October 2021 released a report, and they say the great resignation is actually from a great disconnect. And that disconnect is between employees that are leaving and the managers. And so the reason that people say they leave is different than what managers think why they're leaving.
Let me guess.
Yes.
So I think most people who leave because they don't like their manager, right? And for the managers, they thought that the employees leave because they are looking for better jobs, better titles, and better salaries.
In a nutshell, that's essentially it. So employees leave for relational attributes. Feeling acknowledged, feeling belonging, things like that, relational. Whereas managers are thinking of it as transactional attributes. So the benefits, the pay, things like that. And so that great disconnect is leading to a lot of attrition. Showing care actually will go a long way to building the relational piece to kind of really help people want to stay on your team, especially when the talent market is so hot. And so when I say caring, really it's like caring about their needs, their development, their personal situation, and then how do you align that to some of what the team is trying to accomplish, but also really, making sure that you're looking after them. And I remember one story of a manager that shared something that kind of really struck home. One was, when he was coming out to the US, he was based in Asia. His manager told him that, hey, look, this is an opportunity that is good for you. And even though we really need you as a team for your career, this is the right thing. And that's why, I want to make sure you know about it and that you can apply and do it. And to him, that was the ultimate sign that his manager was looking out for him, right? And he valued that so deeply that he is actually making that a core part of how he shows up as a manager. And so he's also now making sure that he's looking in the corner of each member of his team. And even if sometimes certain decisions might be challenging for him as a manager to manage his team, he'll try to look out for each individual. And as a result, they built up so much trust, not only while they're still on the team, but even after they leave the team, they want to stay in touch with this manager. And if this manager goes somewhere, they might even consider joining that manager on the new opportunities. And so I think that building that trust through caring goes such a long way. So I mentioned that caring helps to create psychological safety, which then helps make it easier to talk about how things went and whether they felt good or they didn't feel good. If you don't have the safety there, if you did something and someone feels terrible about it, they don't feel comfortable telling you, right? And that kind of starts to breed not great things. But if you have that trust and you care, then that person, if you did something that made them feel not great and they're willing to share that with you, then that creates more trust. That turns into more ability to then, for you to have felt good just having tried something even if it didn't work, and now you can try something different, right? Whereas before, if you don't have that trust and you don't get that feedback, then you feel like I have to make sure everything lands perfectly. Otherwise, they're gonna feel bad and things are gonna go downhill. So I think having that foundation just creates more space for them to give you grace because they know you care and that you're trying, you've got their best interests in mind, and it just gives you more space to then see, okay, what works, what doesn't work, getting that feedback to keep improving.
Awesome. So assuming that you demonstrated authentically that you care about your direct reports, what is the next step?
Yeah, and so the next part is to make sure you share. I mentioned share because expectation setting and communication are super important. The thing to keep in mind is that information flow and your expectation to share that information in these directions just is now much greater when you're in the role of a manager. So one thing I've done is create this user manual. So both for myself and for folks on my team. And I just put in for myself, like, what are my pet peeves? How do I prefer to work? What are my values? How do I like to be acknowledged? When I'm feeling bad or down, what are some signs, right? And I create it for myself as a model, and then I encourage everyone on the team to create a version for themselves. And so that's a way of doing that communication and expectation setting that I think makes it really interesting to learn from each other, but then we could refer back to it if we ever needed to, learn more about how to communicate with each other.
Michael is very nice that he is gonna share the user menu with all of us, so you can check out in the description.
Cool. Yeah. And then I would say one other thing that I like to do to create some process around surfacing expectations and communicating is making sure I schedule time. I've scheduled time explicitly for development conversations. And I think that's important because usually managers only schedule time for performance conversations. And by performance period, it's like you have to evaluate them. And they feel then on the spot, right? When you're having performance evaluations. So I like to have development conversations in between that so that they know, how am I tracking relative to like your expectations? So that they don't get to the point of that performance evaluation and they get surprised. And one bonus is if you're willing to share some of your development goals as a manager with them, that will also build trust as well, because then they know what are you trying to work on and it feels reciprocal. And so if you're comfortable sharing any parts of your own development journey with them, I think that will go a long way too.
That's a great idea. So what about the third air in
Yes.
the framework?
Yeah, the third one is to be fair. And I feel like this is important to bring up, especially as we're thinking about the return to work / hybrid work situation. A lot of companies are probably considering this more hybrid approach where some folks will be here partially during the week, or there might be a part of the workforce that's fully remote versus folks that are here in person. And so when you have that kind of different situations where people are in office versus not, there's a chance that it might create some inequities around access to information, resources, relationship building, things like that.
I can share an example that we use because we do have a distributed team. So what we have done is we rely on Google Doc for driving decisions. So there was always going to be an owner of the problem and the decisions that would write certain background information and problem statement that share with everyone. And then folks would basically chime in asynchronously, and then the owner would propose a recommendation and add a table at the bottom that put everyone's name there and ask them to really sign off on that decision asynchronously.
So one more thing I want to add to the, as folks are planning to return back into the office or setting up an arrangement, I think it's going to be especially important to be very explicit and clear about your needs and expectations. I know you might have a different relationship with your manager, you might be at different places, but it's going to be very helpful for your manager and for yourself to know what might be some of your needs and expectations going back into that hybrid environment and voicing it and making sure that you kind of start to have that if you didn't have it before, just because it's going to be a lot of things going on for everyone that is navigating this. And so the more you can be upfront about those things and be explicit, it will set you up for success and your team up for success.
Thank you, Michael. I learned so much from you today about how to go from an individual contributor to first-time managers. I'm sure that the audience really appreciate your AIR framework. We all remember it now, and we're sure share with some of our friends.
Awesome.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you all for watching this video. I'll see you